Chapter 1. The day my wife Victoria Hale's company went public, I dressed to the nines for the occasion. But at the press conference, she gave my late father's heirloom watch to her junior assistant, Julian Vance. Before I could say a word, Victoria beat me to it. "I saw you had so many watches in your closet, so I just grabbed one for Julian. You don't mind, do you?" Julian stood to the side, smirking triumphantly. I stared at them, my face an emotionless mask. Then I reached out, grabbed Julian's arm, and snatched the watch back. If my own wife was so determined to give her heart to another, there was no reason for this marriage to continue. 1. When Victoria saw what I'd done, she slapped me hard across the face, right in front of all the reporters, media, and company employees. My head snapped to the side, but a slow, ironic smile spread across my lips. Julian, meanwhile, started to stammer in a panic. "Sincere, I just felt I couldn't be at such an important event without something decent to wear. So I asked Miss Hale for help. If you're going to blame someone, blame me." As soon as he said that, all eyes in the room turned to me, filled with a hint of disapproval. Victoria pointed a finger at my nose and spat. "On such an important day, you still have to make a scene. Look at your ugly, jealous face. It's disgusting." I couldn't help but burst out laughing at her words. "Victoria, that was my father's watch. You took my father's heirloom to please your little boy toy, and you have the nerve to lecture me about proper behavior?" My words made Victoria freeze. She hadn't realized that the watch Julian had picked out was my father's. Before she could speak, I pressed on. "And I'd like to ask you, just when did you bring your boy toy home to pick out a watch?" A flicker of guilt crossed Victoria's face, but she stubbornly stuck her neck out and retorted, "What nonsense are you talking about? Julian just happened to see it last time when he was dropping me off at home." I heard this and ruthlessly exposed her lie. "Dropping you off at home, all the way to the walk-in closet?" Our exchange drew the attention of everyone around us. Ever since Julian had joined the company, Victoria had bent the rules for him time and time again. Their relationship was already the subject of rampant office gossip. Coupled with today's events, the looks from her employees were now laced with contempt. Julian tugged at Victoria's sleeve from behind her. He whispered, "Miss Hale, let it go. It won't look good if this continues." His show of being the bigger person only made Victoria more furious with me. I paid it no mind and simply turned to leave. Victoria's furious and flustered voice called out from behind me, "Sincere Dawson, what do you mean by leaving now? The ceremony isn't even over." I pretended not to hear and quickened my pace. Just as I walked out of the hotel, I ran into my childhood friend Jasper Jackson, who had also come for the press conference. He looked surprised to see me leaving. Jasper knew exactly how much blood, sweat, and tears I had poured into getting Victoria's company to its IPO. Not only that, but I had specifically discussed with him giving Victoria's company a major project as a celebratory gift. But after everything that had happened today, I felt like a complete joke. Without waiting for Jasper to speak, I threw an arm around his shoulder and pushed him toward the exit. "Let's go. The deal's off." The moment we got in the car, the news of my fight with Victoria at the press conference was already trending. Hale Corp CEO and lovers spat, public feud with husband at launch event. Jasper glanced at the headline, then turned to look at me. He patted my hand reassuringly. "You live and you learn, my friend. Let me buy you a drink." After a few drinks, the bitterness I'd been suppressing came rushing out. I slumped onto the sofa, muttering to myself, "Why? After all our years together, why does our relationship mean less than someone she's known for less than a year?" Jasper refilled my glass. He clinked his against mine. "Don't think about it. Just drink." "Victoria, since the love between us is spoiled, there's no need to drag this out any longer." 2. After parting ways with Jasper, I planned to go home and tell Victoria I wanted a divorce. But when I opened the door, I was greeted by a house shrouded in darkness. I glanced at my phone. It was past midnight, and she still wasn't back. Seeing Julian's profile picture pop up on my social media feed, I clicked on it. In the video he'd posted, Victoria was holding his hand tightly as they went around toasting other guests. Looking at their smiling faces in the video, you would have thought it was their wedding reception. I closed the app, put my phone down, and went to wash up. I didn't notice my phone screen flashing insistently as I turned away. When I came out of the bathroom, I saw Victoria sitting on the sofa, her face grim. "Seeing me," she said coldly. "Haven't you made enough of a scene? You ruined the entire press conference. If Julian hadn't saved the day at the end, I would have been left there, a laughingstock for everyone to see." I watched her with cold eyes, saying nothing. Under my gaze, Victoria looked away guiltily. Finally, her embarrassment turned to anger. "It was just a stupid watch. So what if you treat it like a treasure? Is that going to bring your father back? In this world, shouldn't the living be more important?" Looking at her twisted face, I laughed. "Victoria, you're the one who's cheating, so how can you be so brazenly self-righteous?" Victoria hadn't expected me to call her out so bluntly. A guilty look flashed across her face. I had no intention of arguing with her further. I went straight into the bedroom and closed the door. Just as I was about to fall asleep, a warm body pressed against me. Victoria hugged me from behind, her lips close to my ear. "Sincere, it's been a while." Before Victoria could finish, I pulled her hands away. "I'm tired. Let's just get some sleep." The person behind me stiffened, her voice laced with disbelief. "Are you rejecting me?" In the past, I would have pounced on her like a wolf. But today, her touch made me want to throw up. I fought back the nausea rising in me and said coldly, "I'm human too. I've had so much work lately, I'm exhausted." Not long after Julian joined her company, this was the exact excuse Victoria would use whenever I tried to initiate sex. If it had been a particularly long time, she would just go through the motions perfunctorily. Back then, I truly believed it was the stress of the company that left her with no energy for anything else. To ease her burden, I took on most of the responsibilities at work myself. I just never imagined that this would simply free up more of her time to carry on a romance with Julian. Now, with her own words thrown back at her like a boomerang, Victoria was too stunned to react. I said nothing more, closed my eyes, and went back to trying to sleep. The next moment, I heard the bedroom door slam shut with a loud bang. I opened my eyes, wide awake. I thought I would lie awake all night, as I often did. But surprisingly, I fell asleep almost instantly. I slept dreamlessly through the night. The next morning, Victoria was sitting on the sofa with dark circles under her eyes. I looked at her, surprised. Usually at this time, Victoria would already be out having breakfast with Julian before heading to the office. I once told her that it created a bad impression. Victoria had immediately blown up at me. "I'm the boss of this company. Since when is it their place to gossip about me? I think you're just being petty and jealous." After that, to avoid making her angry, I never brought up her and Julian again, no matter how much it bothered me. Seeing me come out, Victoria spoke with some awkwardness. "Let's go to the office together today." I raised an eyebrow at her words. This was the first time she had suggested we go to work together since Julian arrived. I glanced at the time and agreed. But as I pulled open the passenger side door, I stopped. On the passenger seat sat a men's athletic jacket. Underneath it was a pillow with Julian Vance's face printed on it. This blatant way of marking one's territory. It was something Victoria had once said she detested most. Yet now she allowed Julian to do it. Victoria had clearly seen the items in the passenger seat as well. Her face was a picture of embarrassment. Julian must have just left this here. You know how young guys are with these things. I gave a non-committal and just as she was about to toss the items into the back seat, I had already closed the passenger door. I opened the back door and sat down. Victoria stared at me, astonished. "You're not sitting in the front?" I knew why she was so surprised. In the past, I had argued with her many times over the passenger seat. Each time, she would say I was overthinking things, that I was just looking for trouble. Thinking of this, I let out a soft chuckle. "No, it's fine. It's just a seat. It doesn't matter where I sit." Victoria's eyes widened even more in surprise. I paid her no mind, closing my eyes to rest. I didn't say a word the entire way. When the car stopped in front of the office building, I simply said, "I'm heading in," and walked straight into the building. As for the expression on Victoria's face, I no longer cared. 3. I had just walked into my office when my phone buzzed with a message. The lawyer I'd contacted texted to say the divorce papers were ready to be picked up. I replied with a quick okay. After dealing with some company matters, I wrote a resignation letter and headed for Victoria's office. But just as I pushed open the door, I saw her walking in with Julian, laughing and talking. "Miss Hale, breakfast today was delicious. We should go there again." Victoria smiled and nodded. The moment she looked up and saw me, the smile vanished from her eyes. Julian, however, greeted me casually. "Sincere, have you eaten? I still have some breakfast here." I pulled my gaze away and said flatly, "No thanks." A flash of surprise crossed Julian's face. He hadn't expected me to be so calm after seeing him with Victoria. Victoria didn't even spare me a glance as she walked toward her office. The moment she was gone, Julian's face filled with unconcealed smugness. "Miss Hale cares about me the most now. You should just back out gracefully. It'll save everyone the embarrassment." I ignored his provocation. I just smiled at him. "In that case, could you get Victoria Hale to sign this for me?" I held out the resignation letter. Julian glanced at the letter, and his smile widened. "You just wait." A few moments later, he returned with the resignation letter, signed with Victoria's name. "Good, you know your place. On your way out." Before he could finish, I turned, walked back to my office, and closed the door. Just as I was about to leave for the law firm, Victoria burst into my office, furious. "Sincere Dawson, what about the deal you negotiated? Didn't you say KU Inc. would partner with us after the IPO? How come there's been no word from them?" I smiled, my face dripping with sarcasm. "Did you somehow miss the news from the press conference? After a scandal like that, do you really think they'd still want to work with you?" Victoria's brow furrowed in displeasure. "You're the one who caused that scene. You should go explain it to them. If that doesn't work, then apologize. You know how important that project is to the company, don't you?" I laughed out loud, holding nothing back. "You're the CEO. Aren't these the kinds of problems you're supposed to solve?" Just then, Julian stepped up from behind and tugged on Victoria's hand. "Miss Hale, I know some people at KU. I can try to contact them. Please don't be angry with Sincere." Victoria's gaze toward me grew even more dissatisfied. She shot me a fierce glare. "You really are useless." With that, she turned and pulled Julian back to her office. The KU they were talking about was the company Jasper and I founded in college. Out of respect for Victoria's pride, I had never told her about it. After they left, I went straight to the law firm. With the divorce papers in hand, I planned to settle everything with Victoria today. I had just walked into her office. Before I could even speak, the entire building began to shake violently. It took me 10 seconds to realize it was an earthquake. My body reacted on instinct. I rushed into Victoria's office, wanting to get her out of there. I pushed open the door and saw Victoria and Julian frantically getting dressed. The exposed skin on Victoria's chest was covered in red marks. My eyes widened involuntarily. But there was no time to dwell on that. I ran over, grabbed Victoria's hand, and started pulling her toward the exit. "It's an earthquake, we have to run." I had just pulled Victoria out of the office when she shoved me, sending me tumbling to the ground. "What do you think you're doing?" "Julian is still in there with that." Victoria turned and ran back into the office. Watching my own wife, in order to save another man, push me to the ground. The last shred of feeling I had for her vanished with that choice. As I tried to get up, a sharp pain shot through my ankle. I was using a nearby chair to pull myself up when Victoria, now pulling Julian, ran past and knocked me to the ground again. "Don't get in the way." Julian glanced back at me on the floor, his eyes filled with triumph. Just as I thought I was going to die there, the shaking stopped. Victoria pulled Julian back toward me. Seeing me on the ground, her expression turned anxious. "Sincere, I was just in a panic." "Are you okay? I'll take you to the hospital right now. I used the desk to pull myself to my feet and looked at her with cold eyes. There's nothing more to say. Victoria Hale, let's get a divorce. Chapter 2. 4. The moment I said it, Victoria's eyes went wide. You want to divorce me? Sincere Dawson, are you insane? I made no effort to hide the mockery in my eyes as I retorted sarcastically, when disaster struck, I risked my life to get you out of here. And what were you doing? A person's first choice in a crisis is always their truest. Hearing my words, Victoria could barely conceal her panic. But she stubbornly continued to argue, claiming she was just fulfilling her responsibilities as a boss and that I was slandering her. A sarcastic smile played on my lips. Does your responsibility as a boss extend all the way to the bedroom? As I spoke, I pointed to the marks on her chest that she hadn't managed to cover. Victoria's face froze. Before she could speak, Julian started crying beside her. Sincere, it's my fault. I seduced Miss Hale. If you want to hit someone, hit me. He then raised his hand and slapped himself hard across the face. Sincere, if you're still not satisfied, you can... Before Julian could finish, Victoria grabbed his hand, her eyes filled with pain and affection. What are you doing? This was consensual. What good does hitting yourself do? Besides, it's his fault for being inadequate. That's why I chose you. Victoria looked at me with contempt. As a man, shouldn't you reflect on why you can't satisfy your own wife? How dare you be the one to ask for a divorce? Her shamelessness made me laugh in anger. If you're so dissatisfied, then let's get a divorce. I picked up the divorce agreement scattered on the floor and handed it to Victoria. Sign it. We'll split the assets 50-50. Victoria stared down at the agreement in my hand, her brow furrowed. You carry divorce papers with you? Are you after my money? Unless you agree to leave with nothing, don't even think about me signing this. Her accusation that I was after her money left me speechless. When Victoria and I got together, her company hadn't even been founded. For her, I left the company I had built with Jasper. I worked day and night with her to get her company through its IPO. And now all I got in return was an accusation that I was after her money. Perhaps the sarcasm on my face was too obvious. Victoria's expression grew uglier. What's with that look? Am I not telling the truth? I pay your salary. What are you without me? I closed my eyes, forcing down the bitterness in my heart. Then get ready for a lawsuit. Victoria, you know exactly how much I've put into this company. With that, I turned to leave. But Victoria grabbed my arm, her eyes still filled with disapproval. Sincere Dawson, the company just went public. Is now really the time to be so childish and demand a divorce? I just pushed you a little. Is it really necessary to get a divorce over something so small? I forcefully shook her hand off. Not wanting to waste another word on her, I started to walk away. Suddenly, a massive force from behind shoved me to the ground. My forehead struck a piece of glass that had shattered on the floor during the earthquake. Bright red blood began to flow from the wound. Soon, my face was covered in warm blood. I pressed a hand to the wound and looked back at Julian, who was wearing an innocent expression. He waved his hands frantically, saying pitifully, I didn't mean to. I was just angry that you were hurting Miss Hale's feelings. Victoria, who had been about to walk toward me, stopped in her tracks. She turned back to Julian and cooed comfortingly, It's okay. You don't have to be afraid. I'm here. This is the price Sincere pays for being so aggressive. Don't worry. It's just a small cut. I didn't spare them another glance and struggled to my feet. Limping, I headed for the exit. Before I even made it out of the company building, my vision went black, and I collapsed on the floor. 5. When I opened my eyes, the smell of antiseptic filled my nostrils. Then came Jasper's worried voice. You're awake? Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere? I turned my head to look at Jasper, who was sitting beside me with a concerned look on his face. The doctor said you have a concussion and need to stay for observation. I nodded and told Jasper to call the police. I want to press charges against Julian Vance for intentional assault. Jasper froze for a moment, then got up and went out to make the call. A short while later, 2 officers arrived to take my statement. I told them there was a security camera right outside the office door. It would have a complete recording of the incident. That afternoon, a colleague sent a video to the group chat of Julian being led away by the cops. In the video, Julian had red-rimmed eyes and was shouting that he was innocent. I had just closed the video when Victoria kicked open the door to my hospital room. She threw the phone in her hand at me. She pointed a finger at my nose and screamed, "Sincere Dawson, what do you think you're doing calling the police? Julian made a mistake, and you called the cops. I never thought you were this kind of person." Looking at this woman, her face twisted in rage over another man, she felt like a complete stranger. I closed my eyes and said slowly, "Victoria, I'm your husband, am I not?" My words made her pause as if she had only just noticed the wound on my forehead. A flicker of panic crossed Victoria's face, but she quickly recovered. "This is all your own fault. If you hadn't been so aggressive, why would Julian have laid a hand on you?" I laughed. "Well then, he can get ready to face the consequences." Victoria was speechless. After a long pause, she finally asked, "What will it take for you to drop this?" I let out a soft laugh and said lightly, "Sign the divorce agreement, and I'll drop it." Victoria's face darkened. "You want this divorce that badly?" I nodded. "Yes. After all these years, we've grown tired of each other. There's no need to continue this." With that, I handed her the divorce agreement from the bedside table. Victoria stared at me with a grim face for a long time. Seeing that I wouldn't back down, she finally signed the papers in a fit of anger. After signing, Victoria threw the agreement at me. "Contact his people and get this canceled. Now." I watched her leave without a moment's hesitation. I didn't feel a single pang of sadness. During my time in the hospital, Julian sent me messages every day, telling me where he and Victoria went and what they did. I looked at the screen, at the picture of a deeply infatuated Victoria. I just smiled sardonically. Jasper glanced over and said, "She's got to walk away with nothing for this, right?" I nodded meaningfully. I contacted the same lawyer and asked him to handle the divorce proceedings in court. Seeing the lawyer's reply, "Understood," I put my phone down, satisfied. Jasper handed me a folder, grinning. "Since you've finally left that company, you can come back and take care of things here. These past few years have been killing me." I took the files and said apologetically, "You've worked hard." During my years at Victoria's company, Jasper had handled everything at our company, KU, except for major decisions. Hearing my formal tone, he seemed a little uncomfortable. Jasper rubbed his nose and looked away. "Get to it. I'm going on vacation." On the day I was discharged, Victoria came with Julian. She had a smug, self-satisfied look on her face as she said, "What's wrong? Signed the papers and now you regret it? I've been waiting all this time, but I haven't heard from you about finalizing the divorce." I slowly and deliberately packed my things into a bag before finally looking up at her. "I forgot to inform you, that divorce agreement is now void." Before the triumphant smile could fully form on Victoria's face, I continued, "I've already contacted a lawyer to sue for divorce." 6. Victoria's brow furrowed at my words. "I already agreed to the divorce. What kind of games are you playing now? What good will suing for divorce do you?" I gave her a meaningful smile. "What good will it do me? You'll find out soon enough." With that, I glanced at Julian. Julian's face instantly stiffened. He had clearly remembered what he had sent me. Victoria was oblivious to this and even felt a sense of triumph at my seemingly pointless move. "Well then, let's see what tricks you can pull. Julian has a meeting with someone from Kiwi Inc. tomorrow. You'll see, the company will be just fine without you." I feigned curiosity and asked who from Kiwi he was meeting. Victoria said smugly, "He's meeting with the general manager of Kiwi. Not someone you could get a meeting with so easily." I raised an eyebrow. "That's odd. I don't think I have a meeting tomorrow." Hearing me, Victoria stared at me astonished. "What did you just say?" I collected myself and said nothing. Victoria gave me a suspicious look but eventually left with Julian. I sent a message to Jasper, asking if he had a meeting with anyone tomorrow. Jasper quickly replied that he didn't. Once I confirmed they weren't meeting with us, I put the matter out of my mind. After leaving the hospital, I took a taxi back to the home I had shared with Victoria. As I pushed open the door, I realized that every single item in this place held a memory. Everything in the house was something Victoria and I had picked out together, piece by piece, from furniture markets. When we bought the last item, Victoria had jumped on me excitedly. "I finally have a home, thank you. Sincere, we did have a period of great love." Back then, no matter how exhausting work was, we would always make time for a date once a week. But after the company was established, we started arguing every day about work. Later, it got worse. Many people at the company started saying that it never would have succeeded without me. Victoria couldn't stand the blow to her pride. Even though I had already left most of the company's affairs for her to handle, she still wasn't satisfied. The conflicts between us grew. After Victoria hired Julian, we began to fight constantly. About the company, about Julian. Over time, it evolved into her watching me with cold indifference as I vented like an erupting volcano. And now, it had become mutual loathing. I shook my head with a bitter smile. I packed all of my belongings into a suitcase. I threw all the couple-related items into the trash. Before long, I had finished packing. As I was pulling my suitcase toward the door, Victoria happened to open it. Julian was standing behind her. When she saw me, a flicker of guilt crossed Victoria's face, but she quickly composed herself. "In such a hurry to leave? You're back to pack your things the moment you're out of the hospital," I said, without a shred of mercy. "Yes. The sight of you two makes me sick." My words made Victoria's face turn incredibly ugly. "Sincere, Dawson, do you have to be so nasty? I can say things far nastier than that. Would you like to hear them?" Victoria was so angry her eyes turned red, but she couldn't say a word. Just then Julian spoke up. "Sincere, I know you're just jealous that Miss Hale is nice to me, but she only sees me as a little brother. Please don't misunderstand our relationship." Hearing this shameless lie, a sarcastic smile tugged at my lips. "Right, sleeping with your little brother. That's a novel kind of relationship. You—" Victoria, enraged, raised her hand to strike me. The moment her hand came down, I raised mine and blocked it. I flung Victoria's hand aside. I said coldly, "Don't go around hitting people." With that, I opened the door and left. Victoria screamed and raged behind me, just like I used to, and I, like she used to, treated it with cold indifference, not even turning my head. 7. I dropped my luggage off at the new apartment I had rented and went straight to the office. As soon as I entered my office, my assistant informed me that there was a banquet tonight. My brow furrowed slightly, and I was about to decline. But then Jasper walked in and told me it was a banquet held specifically for me. I said, somewhat reluctantly, "I'm not a fan of all this pomp and circumstance." Jasper gave me a mysterious smile. "Victoria Hale's company will be there." I instantly understood his meaning and didn't refuse. As the evening approached and the banquet was about to start, I finally left the office. Jasper gave me a disdainful look. "We're introducing you to everyone tonight. And you're wearing that?" I waved my hand dismissively and closed my eyes to rest. When we arrived at the venue, Jasper told me to go in first. As I stepped into the banquet hall, I saw Victoria, dressed in a stunning evening gown. Behind her stood Julian in a tailored suit. Looking at this perfect couple, I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. I was about to turn and leave when Victoria called out to me in a loud voice. "Sincere, Dawson, what are you doing here? Is this the kind of event you should be at? You're not a director at our company anymore. How do you have the face to show up here?" Her words drew the attention of many people, who began to point and whisper about me. Before I could speak, Julian, standing behind Victoria, said with feigned surprise, "Sincere, don't tell me you regret divorcing Miss Hale and came here to beg for forgiveness?" His words seemed to spark a realization in Victoria. "Sincere, Dawson, I thought you were so tough. Turns out you came to beg for forgiveness. How about this? When the general manager of Q Inc. arrives, if you can get him to agree to a partnership with our company, I'll forgive you. After all, you're the one who caused this mess, so it's only fair that you clean it up." Victoria's entitled words left me speechless. Seeing the crowd of onlookers growing, I didn't want to get entangled with them any further and prepared to leave. Victoria, thinking I was feeling guilty, grabbed my arm and wouldn't let go. "Where are you going? Do you think you can just wander around as you please at an event like this?" "Security." My brow furrowed tightly. I said in a cold voice, "Let go." I shook her hand off. Just as I was about to speak, Jasper walked over. He raised an eyebrow and asked me, "Is this your ex-wife?" I nodded wearily. Victoria knew that Jasper was the general manager of KU. She looked at him with a fawning expression. "Mr. Jackson, Jasper cut her off with a half-smile. "I know who you are. The CEO of Hale Corp." His words brought a fleeting look of triumph to Victoria's face, but Jasper's next words wiped the smile away. "Sincere's cheating ex-wife." Victoria quickly argued that I was talking nonsense and that there was no affair. Jasper didn't say much more, a wicked grin playing on his lips. "Let me introduce you. This is KU's other general manager, Sincere Dawson." The moment Jasper said this, not just Victoria, but the entire crowd of onlookers stared at me in astonishment. Julian's eyes were wide as he blurted out, "How is that possible?" "You must be joking." Jasper kindly explained that if I weren't the COGM of KU, why would KU have given Hale Corp such a favorable deal? How could Hale Corp have gone public so easily? Victoria's brow was locked in a deep frown. "Sincere Dawson, even if we're getting a divorce, you don't need to get your friend to put on a show and pretend you're the GM of KU." She clearly remembered that I had once told her the GM of KU was my childhood friend. Jasper didn't say anything more. He just pushed me toward the stage. He spoke into the microphone with a serious tone. "This is the other general manager of KUA, and my other partner. I hope that in the future you can all direct your business to him and give me a break." Jasper's comment drew a wave of laughter from the crowd. The companies that had been working with Kiwi for a long time all knew it had two general managers. People in the hall came up to greet me one after another. Even as the banquet ended, two pairs of eyes were still fixed on me. Just as I was about to get in my car and leave, Victoria called out to me from behind. "Sincere, I need to talk to you." Behind her was Julian, his face a mask of resentment. When he looked at me, his eyes held a hint of venom. 8. "Is there anything we haven't made clear?" I stared at Victoria, my face impassive. She stood stunned for a moment before finally speaking. "Since you're the general manager of KU, does this mean the partnership between our two companies can—" Before she could finish, I cut her off. "Jasper has already made it clear to you. KU was lowering its standards to partner with you before. It's obvious that such a good deal will not be happening again." Victoria spoke with an air of pure entitlement. "But given our relationship, shouldn't you be even more inclined to work with Hale Corp?" Her shamelessness made me laugh out loud. "What relationship is that? The relationship of an ex-husband and ex-wife?" Victoria still believed that our divorce was just a tantrum on my part, a way to get her attention. For the sake of the partnership, she even offered to fire Julian, telling me to stop being irrational over such minor issues. I glanced at Julian standing behind her, a sarcastic smile on my face. "What makes you think I would want a woman who's already been slept with by someone else?" Without waiting for Victoria to respond, I played the video Julian had sent me right in front of her. The moment Victoria saw the video, her face turned deathly pale. The disbelief in her eyes was about to spill over. But her first instinct was still to defend herself. "This video is fake. He forged it to drive a wedge between us. Sincere, you have to believe me, we've been married for so many years. You know I'm not that kind of person, right?" As if her words weren't enough, Victoria turned and slapped Julian hard across the face. Julian stared at her in disbelief. He clearly couldn't believe that the Victoria who had professed so much love for him would actually hit him. I knew Victoria. She was a selfish and pragmatic person. She would do anything for her own benefit, but Julian clearly didn't see it that way. He broke down and roared at Victoria. "Didn't you say you loved me? Now that you've found out Sincere is the GM of KU, everything changes? Victoria Hale, you just got out of my bed, and now Slap Victoria didn't hesitate to slap Julian again, even harder this time. Don't you dare spout nonsense. How could I possibly have a relationship with you? My heart only has room for sincere. Julian shot me a venomous glare before leaving, filled with resentment. Victoria looked at me with a fawning expression. Sincere, honey, I've gotten rid of him. We built Hale Corp together. You wouldn't have the heart to watch it go bankrupt, would you? Looking at this new, humble Victoria, I found it somewhat novel. Since we got together, she had always been the one in control. In the past, if she had spoken to me in such a soft tone, I would have immediately agreed to anything she asked. But now, I only found Victoria to be a hypocrite. I looked at her with cold eyes and said without a shred of mercy, I would. A company that small has no reason to exist. With that, I ruthlessly told the driver to leave. Hale Corp was destined to fail, but not just yet. From that day on, Victoria began to neglect her company. She started waiting for me outside the Q building every day. A few days later, everyone at the office knew I had a clingy ex-wife who wouldn't let go. But Jasper had previously posted an announcement on the company's internal network, publicizing everything Victoria had done. Now, whenever my colleagues saw Victoria, they would shoot her looks of contempt. But Victoria, who had always been obsessed with her reputation, acted as if she saw nothing. She stubbornly continued to wait for me at the company entrance every day. I looked at the Victoria in front of me now. She handed me a small bag of cookies. Honey, I baked these cookies myself. Weren't these your favorite? See if they taste the same as before. Back when Hale Corp was just starting, we used to work overtime every day. Victoria would often bake cookies for our late-night snack. Seeing these cookies so full of memories stirred nothing in my heart. I ruthlessly knocked the bag she offered out of her hand, sending the cookies scattering on the ground. Victoria, can you please not use our past to disgust me? She stared at me in disbelief. You're calling this disgusting? Without a second thought, I nodded. Yes. Victoria refused to believe it. She broke down yelling at me. But you used to love these, didn't you? I sneered. I don't like them anymore. That includes you. The sight of you makes me sick. Victoria couldn't accept it, muttering to herself over and over that it was impossible. I ignored her and walked straight into the company. That night, Julian posted everything about his affair with Victoria online. He even included photos of her in bed. Overnight, Hale Corp's reputation plummeted. No one wanted to partner with a business owner of such poor character. Within a few days, Hale Corp was liquidated. The day after her company went bankrupt, Victoria came to find me, but I had security throw her out. The next day, I expected to see Victoria at the company entrance again. Instead, what I saw was her on the news. Victoria believed that Julian had caused her to lose everything. The night before, she had driven her car and run over Julian as he was leaving a bar, killing him. She was arrested at the scene. After watching the news, I picked up my files and went to my meeting. My business with Victoria Hale was over. Whatever happened to her in the end had nothing to do with me anymore. Now all I wanted was to start a life that was truly my own.